位贵宾、各位先生、各位女士。
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's seminar co-hosted by CNAIC and Confederation of Indian Industry.
The International Forum on Business Opportunities between Taiwan and India, co-hosted by Chinese National Association of Industry and Commerce Taiwan and Confederation of India Industry. First of all, let's welcome CNAIC Acting Secretary General Mr. Chou Yi-che to deliver his opening remarks.
Deputy Director General Rishikesh Swaminathan, our speakers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of Chinese National Association of Industry and Commerce Taiwan, CNAIC, I would like to welcome you all to the International Forum on Business Opportunity between Taiwan and India that we co-hosted with Confederation of Indian Industry, CII. CII is a very important Indian trade association and is an MOU partner with CNAIC. Let me take this opportunity to express my appreciation to CII for your support and also thank India Taipei Association for making this forum possible. India is a key country in our new southbound policy. The industrial structure of Taiwan and India is complementary, with endless potential for cooperation and unlimited business opportunities. Since the US-China trade conflict, India has gradually become an important base for Taiwanese businessmen to diverse production and exports from China. Between 2018 and 2020, Taiwanese investment in India reached a record high. As a result, India, among Taiwan's new southbound countries, has stand out as one of the greatest increase in FDI from Taiwan. This is a testament to the attractive opportunity in India to Taiwanese firms that are keen to build their presence in India. Based on my observation, India has more intimate and friendly relationship with Taiwan than with China. In particular, Taiwan's experience in developing SMEs and high-tech industry has impressed many Indians and promoted them to engage in more exchange with Taiwan. This has laid a solid foundation for Taiwan and India to further expand our cooperation. India has a huge domestic market supported by very strong economic momentum. The spread of COVID-19, however, has caused Indian economy to slow down a bit. Nevertheless, the post-pandemic world still sees lots of upside potential in India. On the other hand, India is also a huge country with diversity in terms of ethnicity, language, and religion. There will be 6 speakers. The first one is the one represent India's largest electric bike maker, Hero Electric Managing Director, Mr. Naveen Mujra, who will talk about the prospect of deeper cooperation between India and Taiwan. Next, Ms. Shatamdi Kaur, the regional head of India and South India in Standard Chartered Bank, who will be introducing the trade and investment opportunities in India. And then we have the head of North Asia of Tech Mahindra, Mr. Avita Ghosh, will present how Taiwan and India can work together in areas of technology and digital manufacturing. We also have Mr. Jason Shi, Executive Director of the Economic Division of TECC in India, who will focus his talk on supply chain analysis. We also have 2 representatives from the private sector. Mr. Zhang Kaihan from CDC is present on site, and we also have from online. Mr. Angus Zhu from CTBC. We will also have a discussion session towards the end of the event. You are all welcome to post your questions. For those who are online, you are also welcome to join us. I wish this conference a great success. Thank you very much.
等一下，我觉得呢，
I will switch to English to send greetings to our friends from India.
Before ending my remarks, I would like to say some words in English to our Indian counterpart and speakers. When I joined a business delegation to India in 2019, I paid a visit to Confederation of Indian Industry in person. At that time, we both sides promised to enhance our cooperation. Thus, I am really pleased to see such a promise fulfilled today. I believe that we will continue to broaden our cooperation. Now, Taiwan and India are both facing the challenges of COVID-19. I sincerely hope that we can soon conquer this dreadful pandemic and get through the hard times. Despite the current difficult situation, I'm glad that we succeed in holding today's forum in a virtual way. To some degree, it is more efficient and time-saving without the need to travel abroad. This is perhaps the positive result of the pandemic. Next, as we have the limited time slot for every session, may I request all the speakers to finish your speech on time. Besides, since India is one of the most important new southbound countries for Taiwan, our business community may already have basic knowledge of India's economy. Therefore, may I make a suggestion that we get to the point and avoid repeating what has been mentioned before. Thank you very much.
谢谢邱代理秘书长 ，Thank you, Acting Secretary General。接着，恭请印度台北协会施哲胜副会长来为我们致辞，请大家鼓掌欢迎。Next, we would like to invite Deputy Director General of India Taipei Association, Mr. Rishikesh Swaminathan, to say a few words.
邱代理秘书长，Acting Secretary General Mr. Choizer, Mr. Naveen Munjal, Managing Director, Hero Electric, Ms. Chandandeep Kaur, Regional Head, Standard Chartered, Mr. Amitava Ghosh, Senior Vice President, Tech Mahindra, distinguished guests and representative from Taiwan government, Mr. Jason Xu, Economic Director, TECC in New Delhi, and representatives from Taiwan businesses, Mr. Stephen Chang from CDC, and Mr. Angus Chu from CTBC Bank, and all the distinguished guests who have gathered here today. A warm good afternoon to all of you here in Taiwan and India. It is refreshing to be back on a physical event after a long time, and a special thanks to CNAIC and CII for having organized this event in this manner and inviting me to part in this. It is an honor and privilege to participate in this edition of the International Forum on Business Opportunities between Taiwan and India, jointly organized by CNAIC and CII. It is heartening to see the two leading industry associations from both sides to come together in organizing this forum, which could not have come at a better time than now. The industry representatives congregated here may not have missed the fact that the business and economic interactions between Taiwan and India in the recent years have been growing closer and stronger than ever before. Our discussions have transcended the traditional cooperation in the electronics sector to cover more and more additional businesses and business interests like bamboos, pineapple fibers, particularly focusing on the northeastern part of India. This is both a sectoral and geographical first, if I can take the liberty to use such kind of phraseology. But this is not to diminish the core strength and driver of our bilateral interactions, which is the high-end and next-generation technologies, including integrated circuits, artificial intelligence, IoT, and electric vehicles, to name a few. I am glad to see the participation of the top leadership of Hero Electric today, one of the leading EV scooter brands in India, and I am confident that with the leadership of able hands like yourselves, our cooperation can touch much higher heights. The year 2021 has been an excellent year for our trade and business relationship, with numbers rebounding to grow over 25% from the levels of the pre-pandemic year of 2019. While on one hand, this shows the broad-based recovery in India for our businesses, this also shows that businesses have taken the message of our leadership to evaluate their decisions in a more strategic sense and fully embrace the calls for Atmanirbharta coming from our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi. Supply chain decisions no more just rely on cost competitiveness, and the additional search for resilience has shown the world that trustworthy partnerships can be made here in Taiwan. I am glad to see Indian businesses embracing this position and industry bodies like CII and CNAIC helping the businesses in this pursuit would certainly benefit the relationship further. While the results of the bilateral economic interactions are encouraging, it would be remiss on my part to not address the fact that the relationship is still performing well below its potential. For example, while the bilateral trade and investments have seen impressive growths in the recent years, at a peak of close to $7 billion for bilateral trade, and aggregated investments till date of close to $2 billion stands very meager compared to the potentials of both the sides globally, and coming from any scale, this stands very meager. And there is a significant imperative on leaders like yourselves and your members to help the economic interactions reach the full potential. I hope that frequent such interactions would certainly pave the way for future growth and help unlock the momentum in this otherwise very robust relationship. With these words, I would like to wish everyone gathered here a wonderful afternoon. 祝大家身体健康，万事如意，谢谢。
谢谢施哲生副会长，施副会长请留步。接下来我们请邱代理秘书长及张副总经理讲者到台前与荧幕上的印度讲者共同合影留念。Moving on, we would like to take a group photo with all the distinguished speakers from our both sides. And now we invite all the speakers to look and smile at your webcam. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. 今天我们很荣幸邀请到印度电动机车公司 Hero Electric 总经理 Mr. Naveen Mudra 来为我们演讲，请大家鼓掌欢迎。Today we are honored to invite Mr. Naveen Mudra, Managing Director of Hero Electric, to give a speech. Mr. Mudra, please.
Thank you. Mr. Rishikesh Swaminathan, Deputy Director General, India Taipei Association, Mr. Jason Su, Executive Director, Economic Division, Taipei Economic and Cultural Center, Mr. Yi Shen Chu, Acting Secretary General, CNAIC, my fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It is my very great pleasure and honor to participate and share my thoughts at this International Forum on Business Opportunities between India and Taiwan. I do hope this forum, though virtual, would contribute towards strengthening the engagement between business communities from our two economies. India and Taiwan have historically shared a close and warm friendship that has evolved over the years because of many complementarities the two economies share. With the global trade environment altered greatly in the post-COVID era, the two Asian economies and their strong economic partnership could prove to be a strategic shift as a stabilizing force for the Asian region. As we are already into the third quarter of 2021, the coronavirus pandemic continues to be the most pressing uncertainty facing the world. This pandemic is a strong reminder of how economic growth and development can be threatened by unforeseen events. It is very heartening to note that the global economy is experiencing an exceptionally strong but uneven recovery following last year's collapse. Global growth is set to reach 5.6% in 2021, its strongest post-recession pace in 80 years, in part underpinned by steady but high unequal vaccine access. Advanced economies are expected to grow 5.4% in 2021 with substantial fiscal support and faster than expected vaccinations in the United States, adding fuel to the rebound. Growth in emerging markets and developing economies is also projected to strengthen, reaching 6% in 2021 on the back of improving external demand and elevated commodity prices. The Indian economy too is recovering very strongly. While GDP contracted in 2021, the advanced indicators for the first quarter of this financial year are showing signs of improvement. The first quarter of the year started on a very positive note for India's exports, as they reached a level never before seen in a quarter in our history. In June, the exports rate growth grew close to 30% over the last 2 years ago in a normal year. Furthermore, India's ascent to one of the fastest growing major economies in the last decade or so has been a rapid one. Its nominal GDP has risen at a sharp pace from $1.4 trillion in 2007 to $2.59 trillion in 2020. Though the COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted the economic momentum temporarily and set back India from its initial target of reaching $5 trillion by 2025, India continues to remain a very attractive investment destination. Taiwan's relations with India have increased in breadth, spanning trade, investment, research, and academia, as well as in depth. Trade ties amounting to $7.2 billion in 2019, up from $1 billion in 2000. India continues to attract robust FDI flows, reflecting India's positive medium to long-term growth prospects. India's attractiveness as an investment destination has also grown in the wake of many notable reforms introduced by the government under the ambit of the Atmanirbhar, the self-reliant economic stimulus package to combat the fallout of the pandemic. To attract investments, ease of doing business has been taken up a mission through initiatives by the central and state governments for fast and simple procedures and clearances. As a result, India's EODB rank has improved significantly in the last 4 years, jumping from 134 in 2014 to 63 in 2019. Even before the onset of the pandemic, the government has been at the forefront of announcing a slew of reforms aimed at improving the productivity of the economy. Path-breaking reforms such as the PLI, the production-linked incentives, for as many as 13 sectors have been introduced with an intention to incentivize and boost domestic manufacturing, as well as attracting foreign manufacturers to move base to India. India's service sector comprises the major share of output and has evolved into a dynamic and progressive component of the economy across many segments. Over 1,000 top global companies have set up design and development centers in the country, employing about 1 million engineers and technical professionals to develop products and services for the world. Taiwan and India both represent a big opportunity. India stands as a vibrant and rapidly growing market for Taiwanese companies, facilitating and encouraging investment climate in multiple sectors during this time. This would also benefit from highly competitive, high quality and wide spectrum of products that can be sourced from India. However, there's a feeling that Taiwan and India have still not leveraged each other in terms of trade and commerce. India is only Taiwan's 17th largest trading partner. Let me highlight a few emerging areas of cooperation between the two economies can leverage jointly. This is an indicative list and by no means an exhaustive one. And there are many other areas of potential cooperation between the two economies. Semiconductors and electronics being the first one. Taiwan is a global leader in the semiconductor industry. Owing to Taiwan's early mover advantage and experience in the semiconductor industry, world leaders in electrical and electronic devices manufacturers such as Samsung, Google, and Apple depend on Taiwanese firms to produce customized chipsets for the devices. Taiwan's hardware manufacturing and India's software services are a winning combination to offer to the world. The servicification of manufacturing can derive greatly from bilateral cooperation. India's leadership in IETS, Information Technology-Enabled Services, complements Taiwan's reputation as the world leader in semiconductors and electronics. The next sector is telecom. Perhaps the biggest area in which bilateral trade can grow is the telecom industry. As India is looking to introduce and move towards 5G, Taiwan may be the perfect partner to help achieve this shift. Taiwan sits at the forefront of both semiconductor and 5G industry. Effective collaborations can provide a safe and secure network that will guarantee India's economic growth. The third sector that I would focus on is the e-mobility, which is the sector that I come from. The Indian automobile industry, after several evolutions, is at the threshold of the future of mobility, electric vehicles. India has the second largest two-wheeler market in the world and one of the largest three-wheeler markets in the world. It is estimated that by 2050, electronic automotive components will account for as much as 50% of the entire vehicle. Automotive electronics and software services will play a key role in the era of automotive intelligence. With the strong advancements in ICT industries and capabilities to integrate software and hardware, Taiwan has proven itself as a major supplier and partner for cutting-edge and high-quality components, including batteries, as India transitions towards e-mobility. The next sector of potential collaboration is the high-tech manufacturing. Taiwan has been in the forefront of innovations and advanced manufacturing practices and truly championing the areas globally. India looks forward to more collaborations and partnership with Taiwanese academic institutions, research labs, and industries for co-creation of knowledge for its exploration for a shared future with a focus on automation. Internet of Things, 3D printing, AI, robotics, and 5G technology. Taiwan can play an important role to further strengthen Make in India initiatives to provide high-quality, sustainable, and affordable goods and services. The last sector that I would focus on is the pharma sector. The Taiwanese pharmaceutical market is the seventh largest pharmaceutical market in the Asia-Pac region. India is the third largest producer of pharmaceuticals in the world by volume and supplies 20% of global exports of generic drugs. Also, Indian pharmaceutical market is about 74 billion in annual sales. Considering the significant market for pharma products, there is scope for Indian pharma industry in Taiwan. There is huge potential for investment from Taiwan. According to DIP's statistic, the foreign direct investment from Taiwan stood at USD 368.13 billion for April 2000. September 2020, which is at 0.08% of the total FDI flow into India. I'm pleased to inform that CII has recently formed a subgroup on Taiwan to develop a comprehensive strategy to strengthen and deepen India's trade and business engagement with Taiwan, covering both short-term and long-term objectives. It will also organize interactions with key stakeholders and propose specific recommendations in this regard. Amongst this very challenging global situation lie opportunities for both India and Taiwan to draw policies and reforms which would help fight the current pandemic. The two economies, new and continuing partnership initiatives can help develop transformative technologies and solutions for the post-COVID world. Further, both economies enjoy key mutual complementaries that can derive and closer business relation engagements. Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mujad. 接着有请渣打银行印度暨南亚区主管 Mr. Chandandip Kaur 来为我们演讲，请大家鼓掌欢迎。Our next speaker is Ms. Chandandip Kaur, Regional Head, Global Subsidiaries, India and South Asia, Standard Chartered Bank. Ms. Kaur, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow panelists. I think it is an opportune time for us to really talk about the emerging trade and investment opportunities for Taiwanese companies in India as we celebrate almost 25 years of partnership in this particular year. But before I get into details, then Mr. Munjal has actually picked up quite a few of my points. I think there's an interesting fact that I'd like to share with you One of the universities in Taiwan conducted a poll, and almost 54 to 55% of the respondents actually polled in favor of increasing or building ties with India. Now that is fantastic, because we have actually over the recent years seen both the countries accelerate the efforts to build those ties, but when you have a consensus of the people, then there is truly a power behind it, and the fact that, you know, the countries can actually emerge as very important partners to each other. If you look at Taiwan's trade policy, if I was to just pick up trade first, it hinges on diversification and upgradation. And the southbound policy of Taiwan focuses on trying to move away from the dependency of China. I feel it perfectly kind of complements the Act East policy of India. And, you know, there are boundaries that can be scaled in that, and a lot of effort by both the countries can be made to increase the trade flows. Taiwan hopes that with its south-bound policy, they can increase trade flows in India by almost 20% on a year-on-year basis. And obviously, Taiwan wants to, at the same time, kind of focus on its core competency, because it wants to retain the pole position it has in the global supply chain. Various industry bodies and bilateral agreements have been made between the two countries going right back to 1995, when we established ITA in Taipei and TECC in New Delhi. In 2011, the India and Taiwan signed double taxation avoidance agreement and a custom cooperation agreement to strengthen trade and investment. More recently, in 2018, there was a bilateral investment agreement that was signed, and Taiwan External Trade Development Council was set up in 4 metropolitan cities in India. Taiwan Plus, I believe, is a great initiative by Invest India, and it will act as a one-stop shop to promote and facilitate and retain Taiwanese investments in India. At the risk of repeating, I won't repeat the data that's already been shared, but I just want to draw that data in comparison with the overall trade volumes of both Taiwan and India. And that will, ladies and gentlemen, show us the fact that the opportunity is huge. 7 billion against Taiwan, which has a trade volume almost equivalent to India, so to speak. It has exports, Taiwan has exports of 345 billion and imports of 286. And India has imports of 388 and exports of 290. And we can plus minus 10, 15 billion here and there. So that's the leverage that is available to the two countries, and obviously the upside is huge. If you look at the main exports of Taiwan, they perfectly do complement some of the import needs of India. The electronic component, telecom equipment, electrical machinery, industrial machinery, and chemicals form almost close to 15 to 16% of the import basket of India. And that's where an interesting role can be played with by Taiwan. For example, the electronic goods segment is expected to grow to almost 400 billion, and there's no way that India can totally fulfill the requirements of that particular industry. So it's quite obvious that import dependence for this particular sector and for some of the other sectors will continue, and hence trade, interestingly, should pick up between the two countries on this particular front. And similarly, of course, Mr. Munjal's also spoken about, you know, the overall telecom, 5G, IT industries, etc. That is where I do foresee that a huge amount of trade impetus can come in. Whilst India's economic interaction with Taiwan and some of the bilateral agreements and understanding have set up, but the question that is in minds of a lot of people and economists is that could there be a little bit more formalized kind of a trade agreement so that focus can be drawn more strongly on certain items, you know, of critical import and export, and grow that number from 7 billion up significantly. Let's talk about investment. I think that's where most of the action has been, and that's really an interesting part of the story. The why India is something that I think is very widely publicized. 75% of MNCs actually pulled in favor. I think it was a CII-EY poll that was carried out, which polled in favor of investing in India over the next 75 years. You have story around the fact that it's one of the fastest growing. It has a huge youth population, therefore domestic demand is quite high. It's rising in terms of global index of competitiveness, in terms of innovation, availability of labor in the country. And of course, in many ways, what's really important is the growing importance of India as an economic influence in the APAC region. And a few points which are more relevant to Taiwan. For Taiwan, the interest in investment is not just the fact that it is a low-cost country. Obviously, it offers diversification in terms of the concentration it has. But another important factor also is the fact that it gives it a springboard to reach out to the markets of Europe and even the Africa markets. So that's obviously fantastic in terms of the opportunities that are available to Taiwanese companies in India. The FDI numbers have already been shared, to 2.3 billion, or you can put it 2.3 to 3 billion. It's important to compare this to the overall FDI numbers for India. In the last roughly 19-20 years, the FDI flows into India have been close to 763 billion. So there again, you can see that the gap is absolutely huge. And if you look at the investment that Taiwanese companies have done in the recent past or over the years, there are approximately 200 Taiwanese companies in India, and in China there are more than 10,000. There has been approximately $100 billion of FDI going to China. Some of the Southeast Asian countries of Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia have also got investment between 12 to 17 billion. So definitely, it's not a number that cannot be scaled. The scalability of that number is absolutely huge, and there has been a lot of activities that has happened more recently because of the PLI scheme or the product incentive scheme of the government, which has been a welcome step along with the benefits that have been provided to SME and MME under the PLI scheme. I will not repeat the data, it's already been shared. But some of the reforms or initiatives that have been taken by the Indian government, and there are a plethora of them, I won't name all of them, but the PLI scheme, the GST regime that was put into place, more recently, the withdrawal of retrospective tax, the lowering of tax rate for the multinational companies, and very interestingly, the Digital India initiative. I think these are all very positive indicators, and they have provided a positive impetus to investments into India. Mr. Munjal has already called out some of the industries or sectors where Taiwan can definitely look to invest, and healthcare and pharma is definitely on top of it. Just a little bit of a focus on the overall digital initiative, digital drive. Taiwan's expertise can help the country in its smart city initiative, smart machinery. I think that is really the future of manufacturing. A lot of collaboration can be done over there. More recently, smart transport. Taiwan has set aside almost $1 billion yuan, I was reading, for investment in this particular space, and these are definitely key cooperation areas, investment areas that can be looked after. Along with internet, the age of internet, digital India comes cybersecurity threat. It's very interesting to note, apart from the fact that the semiconductor industry of Taiwan is amongst the largest in the world and extremely critical, it's also interesting to note that Taiwan has very effectively managed the threats that have been to this particular industry and managed to stay ahead of both competition and data theft. EV vehicles, quite definitely, there are companies like Teco, Ahamani and Grogo which have expressed interest in this particular space. Renewable is really the future. All the companies are also looking at carbon emissions, green energy. That's the space on the solar side, specifically solar panels. where there is a huge amount of investment that can come in from Taiwanese companies into India. And green energy, very interestingly, India is a very huge agricultural market, and Taiwan's bio-friendly technology can be used to convert agricultural waste into value added. I think we can all talk in this particular forum, but we would have not yet effectively covered every industry, There is complementarity between the two countries to be able to invest and promote various industries in India. Semiconductor is obviously a very hot topic right now, and India has a huge amount of reliance, almost equivalent to 30 to 37% in China in terms of its semiconductor requirements. And I do understand that over 20 semiconductor manufacturing and design companies have submitted the expression of interest, and absolutely delighted to note that the government will not use the one-size-fits-all approach and will try and customize the incentives that is available to the investors in this particular space depending on their exact needs. Now, really coming to policy enablers, I think there is a lot of simplicity in what most of the investors ask out of a market like India. I mean, it's very, simply put, it's like it's a hope that Indian environment doesn't just offer incentives, but provides something more. And that something more is very basic in terms of having a very transparent legal and tax system, encouraging states to remain competitive instead of indulging in trade restrictive practices. There is a lot of, questions around faster paces. It's important to note that India is ranked 63, although we've come up the index of ease of doing business, but Taiwan ranks 15. So that's where the expectation of a Taiwanese company is to further simplify the clearances and the investment procedures in India. More recently, the Wistron phenomena also brought about a very key question in the mind of most of the investors in India, which is improve labor laws and labor availability. How does Indian government, the state governments, step in effectively to ensure that these are taken care in the interest of the investors? Infrastructure development is, when I travel and meet some of the clients in the Asian markets, they usually do call out the need for a much better infrastructure by the country. But the positive news is obviously there's been a huge amount of budgetary outlay in the current budget on infrastructure, and a lot of investment is expected in the key infrastructure areas. So that is, again, a positive impetus. Investment in research and development is another area, although we do have labor availability. But as we move up the curve in terms of more sophisticated industries driven by smart machineries, smart technologies, internet, I think it's important to invest in R&D and upskilling the labor that is available right now, because the basic format of manufacturing is evolving and changing, and hence it's important to ensure that the labor also continuously evolves and improves in terms of their capacities and capabilities. Another important point is development of industrial parks and SEZ. Although certain initiatives have been taken which are more state specific, but in the past, India has created SEZs which for certain countries as they stepped up investment in India. But I guess the focus on allocation of land, large land, and a more consolidated effort towards setting up of industrial parks and SEZs is absolutely key for investment by Taiwanese companies, because what one needs to do is not just have the manufacturer come in and set up shop, but help in terms of co-location of the supply chain ecosystem, right? So that's absolutely critical. In terms of PLI, the need really is to see to ensure that auto and auto component PLI, it's a key sector of the economy, that be announced at the soonest. And also in terms of the PLIs around drones, IoT products, wearable hearables, I mean, these are PLIs also, I think, which will be important and will attract investment from Taiwan. Many Taiwanese companies and other investors who have already put in investment into India and PLI have obviously not been able to meet the criteria for the first year. So perhaps a relook as to how that can be managed so that they can claim incentives is something that the government can do. So that's really broadly in terms of our view of some of the policy matters and initiatives that can be done to further improve the investment environment and accelerate the investment from Taiwan into India. Last but not least, and I'm a banker, I have to speak about the financial sector. But I think that's absolutely critical. It goes hand in hand with government initiative. There have been a number of policy reforms in the financial sector which has made it extremely robust. The whole idea was to be able to provide the last mile connectivity in terms of financial inclusion in the country. Credit is available more easily right up to the last mile as compared to before. There are a plethora of banks in India, public sector, private sector, MNCs like ourselves. There are rural banks, cooperative banks, small finance banks. There are payment banks, there's NBFC. So a lot of stuff has happened in the overall financial sector, and a lot of stability has been brought about in terms of the interest also of the lender by coming up with the insolvency and bankruptcy code in 2016. The government has also recently announced some other reforms which involve the establishment of development finance institutions for infrastructure development. There has been recapitalizations of certain institutes also to ensure that credit is made available easily, creation of bad bank, and privatization of public sector banks. All of this will help in mobilizing additional capital and ensuring that the right amount of support and credit is available to companies, including those that invest from Taiwan. I would like to just spend the last few seconds really talking about Standard Chartered Bank. I think it's very important for companies to be able to choose their right partner as they invest into India. Standard Chartered Bank is positioned very strongly because of the strong presence we have not only in a market like India where we've been for more than 160 years, but the fact that we have a very strong and established presence in Taiwan itself. We are amongst the largest multinational banks in Taiwan with a retail bank presence in almost all of the cities in Taiwan. There are almost 60 retail banks. We pride ourselves for our ability to be able to be trusted advisors to our clients. The regulatory landscape which has been set out by the Reserve Bank of India for multinationals and other corporates in India is extremely complex. It's important that you have the right partner to help you navigate some of the regulatory challenges in India, and we are more than willing to offer our services and remain absolutely connected with you as you make your investments in India. In conclusion, really, given the current economic state and the lessons that we have learned coming out of this particular pandemic, the time, I feel, is absolutely right for both India and Taiwan to further strengthen the trade and investment relations. And they have enough common development goals, right, which they can cooperatively nurture. It is a very mutually beneficial relationship. And I would like to still conclude by saying that India-Taiwan relationship potential is underexplored. So let's together make it happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Kaur. 可以讲了没？可以吗？可以吗？接下来，让我们鼓掌欢迎马欣达国际科技有限公司北亚区代表 Mr. Amitav Ghosh 来为我们进行简报。We will now invite Mr. Amitav Ghosh, Senior Vice President and Head North Asia, Tech Mahindra, to make a presentation. Mr. Ghosh, please.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. to all the delegation that is seeing this event, my fellow panelists, and thank you so much CNIC and CII to conduct this particular event. I do represent the IT sector of India. And at the same time, from a personal basis, I've had the privilege of working very closely in this particular region. Certain nuances, certain uniqueness, and certain very, exciting times that we have had from an organization perspective is right in front of me. When I started to draft my speech, obviously there is a lot of common things that my fellow panelists have covered. I will obviously kind of not delve in them because they have been very strongly put by my fellow panelists. What I'm going to restrict myself is talking real time in terms of what are the areas of collaboration that we think are doing okay, are doing well? What are the things that are collaboration I think that has a lot of potential? And perhaps a couple of points on how we could further improve. However, there is a first thing that I want to mention here, that we've been working as an organization with Taiwan over the last 6 to 8 years. And we've had very, very positive experiences. Positive experiences do come when there are policy level things that are resolved, there are skill level, there are labor level issues that we can go to. It has been a very, very positive work environment that we've had there, as a result of which from an organization perspective, and again I represent even the IT industry, you would see a lot of Indian IT companies investing in Taiwan, not only in the Taiwan market, but in terms of setting up their bases there. Areas that become very, very relevant today when we speak are things like communication technology providing, the high-tech industry, especially the semicon industry, the banking and fintech industry. These are the kind of topmost industries that the collaborations are working quite well. And you would see many top Indian companies, IT companies, investing in capacity, investing in skills, and investing in processes to basically take Taiwan as one of the markets where they can launch a lot of the global services, not only meant for Taiwan, but actually globally. And there has been a lot of examples that you would see in the news and with our customers that really has happened. So I think first, there is a very positive environment and a positive sentiment that I think that from an IT industry perspective for India, that one feels about Taiwan, and we think that this should continue and progress further. Second, specifically, in terms of what this particular industry could offer, right? And I'm going to subsection this into two areas. India market, okay, and I think my fellow panelists spoke very well about the potential collaboration areas that one can seek from Taiwan. India has been one of the pioneers to do the smart city, but very importantly, one of the biggest pioneers in terms of implementing smart cities and budgeting for it. Okay, there would be very few examples in world where a country has allocated specific budgets for this very important partner. Perhaps one of the only countries in Asia which has actually done a lot of budgeting for developing smart cities. There is a lot of technology deployment here, and I'm sure that there is a lot of product and services and skills that one can utilize where Taiwanese companies have been investing. Second area that you see, and this has started a long time ago, India has invested quite a lot on, governance. We call it the e-governance, right? And that was something which possibly has changed India. There is a lot of technology deployment there. There is a lot of volumes. There is a lot of, challenges. But then, when things are very robust into deployment, they actually come out with the right. But if you really see today, the success of some of the social security schemes, the farmer-related, the subsidy-related governance, then you would find very, very good examples of India, and it is investing continuously on that. The third area that we, talk about today is that you would see some of the very complex, places like municipalities and state and associations investing in a lot of technology, right? Where, mass-scale deployment of technology has happened and has actually made a lot of benefit into the people of India who have actually get benefited from even, getting a birth certificate and a death certificate has become much easier, right? There is a lot of technology scope today in that particular market. So that is part A of the, collaboration that we can find. But let's talk about part B, right? What can the Indian IT industry also do? Indian IT industry is very well known for its global deployment, global clientele, global reach, and has served good markets in the US, in Europe, and a lot of part of Asia Pacific, Australia, New Zealand. And now there is a lot of work that the Indian companies are doing, IT companies are doing, to increase its clientele, even in areas like Middle East, Africa. So truly a global deployment model that is there, right? A second area of collaboration that happens is that once an Indian company, Indian IT industry company collaborates with the Taiwanese companies, there is a lot of scale that it can actually offer in terms of its clientele, and technologies can really be deployed. There is a lot of global clients who depend on the Indian skills, Indian program models, and thus that's a very, very clear way of collaborating between the two countries when it comes to high tech and areas where skills are necessary, right? So that is in terms of the collaboration between the two countries and how does it actually benefit in specific from an IT industry perspective. Let's look at some of the areas where there has been a lot of movement and there could be a lot of collaboration. Automotive market, right? The booming automotive markets in South Asia, a lot of themes in and around connected cars, Middle East, Africa, Europe, many of these, right? There are already very good examples where an Indian company, Indian high-tech company and a Taiwanese company have come together and actually working on things and themes for a lot of these particular countries in area of connected cars, whether it is in the area of infotainment, whether it is in the area of telematics, or whether it is very simple, the advanced driving assembly systems. So there is already examples where high-tech companies in Taiwan collaborating specifically for skills and global deployment methodologies that are available with Indian companies to actually be a collaborative force in addressing this part. So in many circumstances, one feels from an industry perspective that there is a scope of a lot more collaboration than any competition that one can look at from an industry perspective. That's certainly a thing which is very, very promising up to us. My, fellow panelist mentioned about many of the areas, and just to reiterate that, some of the ones which are going to be very important, and some of them have been deployed in the COVID-19 situation as well. Things like, recognition or thermal recognitions, where we have been collaborating with, Taiwanese companies. But specific areas of machine learning definitely is an area where there could be a lot of potential for collaboration, given the kind of skill base and development base that is available with India, and the kind of, manufacturing and capability and design capabilities available with Taiwan. Things to do with, Mr. Munjal mentioned about e-mobility, and I also mentioned about the automotive part. Definitely an area where taking it even beyond to areas which is, SDN related, which is to do with deployment of 5G into the enterprise, into the financial sector, even for that matter, the retail and the health sector becomes very, very important. And that's a big area of collaboration that can really happen between the two countries. IoT, has been a lot of push, and maybe, sometimes one can always feel that it possibly may not have lived its, promise, but, things are changing very, very fast. There is a lot of automation that is happening. This is a manufacturing region, right? And when it comes to manufacturing, then, IoT, AR, VR are being very, very fast deployed, not only in a base like India, but this region as a particular base is something that one has seen collaboration between, Taiwanese companies and Indian companies. So AR, VR, IoT, two very, very important thinking. And of course, the one which is, the most exciting part about the collaboration, and again, this is coming out of some of the experiences, is design thinking. So if you really see that, recently and over the last 5 years, there has been a lot of Indian companies who have invested in, even IT companies have invested in design studios, right? Whether it is design to do with CX, UX, but also to do with automobile, automobile engineering and automobile design. Say, for example, Tech Mahindra, our organization, we acquired a company called Pininfarina in Italy to basically do the car design. But more importantly, that it actually sets the entire supply chain or the entire outsourcing of automotive to an organization like Tech Mahindra. Similarly, the areas to do with high tech. There has been a lot of examples now, whether it is a device, whether it is a mobile phone, whether it is a laptop, whether it is a PC, or for that particular matter, and TV. There has been increasing amount of collaboration, and which we feel very good about, is that whilst, as I say, that there is collaboration on the design and the manufacturing in Taiwan, but there is a lot of development and testing activities which requires a lot of skills which has actually happened. There is a lot of service base in India. There is a lot of design and manufacturing base in Taiwan. I think a lot of collaboration can really happen in these areas. Collaboration not as competitions in any way, but collaboration in terms of addressing definitely the Indian market, which is a very, very big market, but also the global market. These are just times where we have just started. We feel the potential of any of these particular area is really huge, and and the market that we can all address together as two countries is definitely global. So we can all go beyond our just two countries, but basically increase our bases to many of the global deployments that are there. that is part of my, end of my, where I focused on areas of potential collaboration. I think that once again, wanted to thank really, Taiwan, because our experiences in that country has been fabulous really, and we continue and will continue to invest, not only in terms of high-tech skills, methodology, but also collaborate with many universities in Taiwan. And one, for example, is that we have set up what is called a Makers Lab, which focuses on innovation and co-creation of innovative platforms with NCCU and NCKU. That's something which is a very shining example of what collaboration ought to do and how we can bring the best of each other to make products, for the global market. Thank you so much for listening into me, and hope to answer any questions whenever there is time. One can always reach out to us, to me, and we'll be very glad to take our conversations forward for them. Thank you so much for giving me this particular platform, and wishing all of you a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. 接着有请我驻印度代表处经济组许志明组长来为大家进行简报，请各位鼓掌欢迎。还没有出现吗？要直接开始吗？要扣一下，要叫他一下吗？We are sorry that we are losing Mr. Jason Shi. So maybe we can move on to the next speaker, and we will invite Mr. Jason Shi later. 怎样？不是他呀，他要这个啦。那怎么他回来了？Okay, we okay. 我讲吗 ？Okay. Mr. Jason Shi is back. So next we will give the floor to Mr. Jason Shi, Executive Director, Economic Division, Taipei Economic and Cultural Center. Director Shi, please. Mr. Shi, please unmute your microphone. 听到吗？ Sorry, we cannot hear you.
Yeah, I got it. So it's fine, right?
Yeah. Please continue.
Thank you, appreciate. And 今天我很高兴
I am very honored to have this opportunity to speak to you. Today, I will touch upon a few things. We talked about the resilient supply chain and opportunities for Taiwanese companies. The supply chain in India in the post-pandemic era, the supply chain we saw relocation of supply chain because of pandemics and also the China-U.S. trade tension. So India is building a resilient supply chain. And India has been working on this for a while. And there are pillars of the supply chain. The first one is economic growth. This is a long-term goal, and the goal is to reach $5 trillion US dollars
by 2030. It is delayed a little bit because of the pandemics. And also for the Made in India project, and they want to reach the goal of more than 15, for at least 15% of GDP from the manufacturing industry. The goal in terms of number is 400 billion. They want to provide, they want to build a resilient supply chain. That's first one. The second pillar is infrastructure. Trade facilitation, e-commerce are two important items. Then the third pillar is population dividends. There is a very strong and emerging middle income population. And the fourth pillar is demand oriented to screen out low quality products from importing and increase the added value of products. In the opportunities and challenges, the number one challenge is insufficient infrastructure. For example, water and electricity supply and logistics. Logistics is a very important percentage of the cost. In India, the number is 13%. Why 13%? Because the road and transportation structure is not as advanced as other countries. If you are to ship a product from inland to the coast, the cost is 13%. The goal of the government is to reduce that to 8%. And digitization, there is a digital gap. Network is not universally available. India is working on that. The third challenge is that India's supply chain is not seamlessly linked to that of the international supply chain. It is not, the Indian supply chain has not been integrated fully into the international supply chain. And human resources, there is also a challenge of insufficient skilled labors. For example, especially obvious is the top tier for research and design. Talent is not sufficient. For technical part, there's a shortage. And also components, as I said, is not linked to the international standard. India is still working on it. And that is why India is planning on building a resilient supply chain to be self-sufficient. And we'll talk about FTA later. Next page, please. FTA is a very important part of building a resilient supply chain for India. So far, I don't see any major FTA signed by Japan. For example, during the signing of RCEP, India withdrew because of the opposition from domestic groups, for example, SMEs and farmer groups. India withdrew from signing of RCEP. But currently, India is trying to catch up, signing more FTA. They wanted to first sign with EU and UK and United States. Why? Next page. The rules of origins is 35%, or India is trying to change the tax code, 4-digit and 6 digits tax code. Recently, India promulgated rule of origins. India saw illegal transshipment from ASEAN of low quality products. Therefore, India wants to sign an FTA with ASEAN to cover that part, to filter out low quality import products via the rule of origins. So therefore, if Taiwan company if a Taiwan company is to invest in India, this is an issue you will face. This is the strategy of India signing FTA, early harvest, targeting Europe, EU, and the United States. Early harvesting to lower tax rates, lower tariffs to increase more benefits for Indian companies. It is expecting that by September, India will resume negotiation with Europe. By the end of the year, they might resume negotiation with UK. For US, because the change of regime, FTA negotiation with United States may be further delayed. What about Taiwan model? China plus one is one very important of India's building of a resilient supply chain. India wants to be a factory of the world as well. Because the trade tension between China and other countries, there may be an opportunity for India to tap into this market. So therefore, India is trying to integrate the Indian market into the entire bigger Pacific market. And this is the opportunity. Next. India imports a lot of products from China, electronic products, motor, IT components, and way over 50%. Therefore, Chinese products are dominating the market of India. Therefore, India tries to change the situation by producing their own products. Therefore, government rolls out PLI projects. Foreign investors are welcome, but there are regulations on export performance for these investors, covering industries such as IT products or compressor or motor and other products. PLI, product link. If we look at the value-added smile curve, on both sides, branding and research creates higher added value. For example, in the auto industry, supply chain in India, starting from casting and hard manufacturing, it's weak. But for the middle part, the lower part of the smiling curve, where value added is lower, assembling, putting components together, India is very strong. But in manufacturing, casting, molding, India is relatively weaker. there are gaps remain.
Logistics, again, it can be very costly in India. It's as high as 13% of the final product's price. So in this case, take auto supply chain, for example, there are many gaps and there are many sections where value has to be enhanced. The same goes for the electronics industry, for tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 companies. Right now, 100% wafers in India have been imported. Therefore, we need to explore and analyze exactly where opportunities lie. Next. I think there are 4 letters we have to pay attention to if we want to build a supply chain in India. The first one is about land acquisition. Even though the state government is in charge of providing land for companies, you still need to get approval from the central government. You can see the political system in India is such that each state enjoys a great degree of autonomy, so you still have to comply with the state-level laws and regulations. The second L stands for labor. There is still a shortage of skilled labor in India, and the Indian government is enacting laws to improve the labor rights and welfare. Therefore, there will be more social insurance payments imposed upon companies. However, as long as the regulations and rules are transparent, I think companies are fine with these new rules. So even though with these new rules and regulations in place, because of the pandemic, they will not be in force until sometime next year. Next, L stands for liquidity. For fund coming from China or Hong Kong, prior approval has to be conferred first. So if you want to invest in India, you have to make sure that if your capital goes through Singapore or any third country where the tax rate is lower, you have to be careful about potential restrictions there might be. The fourth L is law. In India, the concept or the notion of budget is very critical. Usually, the central government would have a union budget at the beginning of the fiscal year. In order to meet the budgetary goals, laws may be revised accordingly. So, for a company to invest in India, you have to be very careful. Before you sign any contract, if you need to go to an arbitrator, you have to make sure that you find the right agency or organizations. In fact, our past experience showed that sometimes the arbitration law or mechanisms for dispute settlement may work to the disadvantage of Taiwanese companies. Therefore, I would like to remind Taiwanese companies to be mindful of regulatory changes. Moreover, many people refer to India as a diamond in the mud. Make sure you come to India prepared. You have to know if you want to focus on the domestic market in India, or do you want to use India as a springboard for the export of your products. If you want to focus on exports, maybe you can set up your base in the special economic zones. where regulations tend to be more stable because you set up your presence in the SEZ as an export-oriented company. However, if you want to focus on the domestic market in India, you have to start from acquiring land, recruiting labor. Many challenges may lie ahead. However, if you run into any difficulties, you are welcome to reach us at the TECC, and we also have Taiwan Plus in Invest Media. It is our hope that we can provide you services from door to door. After all, India is such a huge market. You have to venture into the market in order to seize the opportunities. Thank you.
今天我们很高兴邀请到2位在印度投资的台商代表进行分享。第一位是市政开发印度子公司张凯涵副总经理兼派驻代表，让我们鼓掌欢迎张副总。We are very delighted to invite 2 representatives of Taiwanese investors in India to share their experiences with us today. And the first one is Mr. Stephen Zhang, Vice President and Country Head of CDC Develop India. Today, he is here in Taipei with us. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Hello, very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Stephen Chan from CDC Development India, aka CDCI. It is my great honor to be here and share our experience. And the very special thanks to Mr. Chu, Acting Secretary General from CNAIC and CII to give us this opportunity to present ourselves. And also special thanks to Deputy Director General Mr. Rishikesh from ITA, which has been very, very helpful to our project. And thank you all the online presenters and audience. Okay. So today I'm going to present our experience of industrial park development in India and introduction of our park. So I'm going to present in Mandarin. Okay.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you are not strange to the appeal of the Indian market. According to a lot of research reports, when it comes to the internet market and the demand for cell phones, it's been growing exponentially. In terms of the smartphone users, we have seen a 12% increase since 2015 to 2022. Similarly, internet users are expected to increase by 14% in the same span of time. In Asia-Pacific region, India has about $127 billion market size for smartphones and many consumer electronics. So if you plan to set up a factory in India, there's an important issue, that is land acquisition. As Mr. Xu just told us, it can be a huge challenge. Sometimes you can rent an existing factory, or you can acquire land from the government to set up your own factory. So I would like to share with you our experience in acquiring land in India. According to a think tank in Delhi, the Center for Policy Research, there are more than 1,200 laws related to land. Therefore, in 2013, the central government proposed the right to fair compensation and transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation, and Resettlement Act. And you can see, according to the new act, restrictions for projects in areas such as defense production, rural infrastructure, industrial corridors have been eased. In fact, the existing law came about in 1894 when India was still under colonial rule. However, the law has been amended in 2013, as I just mentioned. There are different types of land acquisition. The first one is acquisition under the 2013 Act, or you can negotiate with private landowners, or you can acquire land through other acts. Our tip is based in Karnataka state. So let me explain to you the process of our land acquisition. In this particular state, you have to file applications online for land acquisition. The state government will review your proposal. Once approved, there will be an allowance letter sent to you, and then there will be a possession certificate sent to the applicant company. If there are any problems in relation to the land, then the state government can negotiate on your behalf. So once you have the allotment letter and possession certificate, you can move on to sign the lease deed. You have to make payment first before you can sign the deed. As I said, this all goes online. In this state, they have KIADB take care of all the application for allotment. Here you can see the portal to the KIADB. This is where you enter your application. So you can see different fields for information you have to provide, including the area you would like to purchase, where it is located. So this is the DPR we presented to the state governments. Detailed project report. In this report, you have to provide detailed description of your company, what you plan to do on this lot of land, what kind of market analysis you have performed, financial planning, your potential client base, how many jobs are expected to be created, how big capital you are going to inject, what kind of incentives you would like to apply for. DPR, as you can imagine, is very critical. In the future, if you want to apply for any incentives programs from the government, DPR will be the basis for their review. Once you have acquired the land, next, you have to apply for use certificates. Again, all applications take place online. There are many non-objective certificates, NOCs, in India. Again, even if you want to have utility services, you have to apply online. So if you acquire the land through other means, then there will be 20 steps you have to fulfill. If you acquire land through negotiations by the government on your behalf, then you can save a number of steps listed here.
For allotment, when you apply for acquiring land, they have to review your information, the size of the land, and your expected or potential customer, your market. You have to report all these. What about the timeline from acquiring the land to utility available, water, electricity, all in place? Takes about 3 to 4 months. This is the time schedule. You have to have a possession certificate first. And you have to apply for allotment letter before that. Within a month from the date of issue of allotment letter, you will receive the possession certificate, and then you have to sign the lease, and then you have to start building within a limited time frame. If the schedule is delayed, the land might be repossessed by the government, and you can only receive 50% refund of the entire amount of fee of investment. Let me share with you a few a few lessons I learned. First one, DPR, Detailed Project Report. This is very important, critical, because government review is mostly based on DPR. And the next step, when you acquire the land, you have to be extra cautious because there involves a lot of due diligence. Diligence is usually commissioned to a local lawyer, and there are lots of details in the due diligence. For example, the lawyer might ask you to provide documentation before the DD begins. Then that might be a problem, because it is very difficult for you to obtain related documents. Therefore, when you hire a lawyer, you have to specify the work scope. For example, who is responsible for acquiring these documentations, and also the number of landowners, because government acquire the land from farmers, and when the government sell you the land, government has to pay the farmers. So the government wants to know how many landowners are there. And you might have to provide employment opportunity for people who sell their land to the government, so the government can give you the land, and also compensations. Compensation program has to be very complete, otherwise previous landowners will keep coming back to harass you, ask for compensation. This is an example of allotment letter specifying the date of the payment and the conditions of the contract. The next one is possession certificate. It will clearly document where is the land, what are the time frames. This joint survey, you have to arrange a third party to survey the land together with government and you. After you receive the possession certificate and after the joint survey, you have to sign the agreement. And there are two kinds of deeds, lease deed and lease cum sale deeds. Usually, the agreement is 99 years of the use rights of the land. My company is a bit different. We are the only company, except Boeing, we actually own the land. But you do not acquire the land right in the front. It's lease first, lease cum sale. At the beginning, you lease the land, And after you fulfill your commitment to the state government, the government will let you own the land. Another very important issue you have to look into is to make sure the price mechanism. You have to make sure it's tentative or fixed final price. It might be written in the agreement that the price is tentative. Perhaps 2 years, 3 years from now, there might be additional fees required to be the final price. The difference may be 10% to 20%. Therefore, in your agreement, you have to specify whether the deal you reached with the government, the price is tentative or fixed. And incentives. It's different from state to state. It's also different from company to company. It depends on the capitalization, the size of your investment, and your in your industry, what line of business are you working, and how many employment opportunities you can provide. Usually, if you invest more than 2.5 billion rupees, it will be a mega, ultra mega. If over 5 billion, after over 10 billion is called super mega. So if you invest more than 5 billion, ultra mega companies can actually apply for special incentives and then negotiate with the state government. If you invest more than 10 billion, you are qualified for a super mega treatment. You can apply for lease come sell deed. You lease first and then you eventually own the land. This is the joint survey we conducted with the third party and the government. In the state, in the Karnataka state, there are two parts of incentives. The first one, there are subsidies to land, to importation of machineries, and also mentioned by, and another kind of subsidy is PLI, mentioned by previous speakers. Every state is different. They have different systems. Let me next briefly talk about my company. My company, CDCI, is part of the Dongyuan Group. We started with Vietnam, and then we went to Glengallo in 2011. And Chennai, Hyderabad, and Great Noida, we have projects going on. And then I will show you a clip of video. Please show the video, please.
简报可能要先撤下来。 的园区距离班加罗尔国际机场直线距离2公里。那开车
Our tips is about 20 minutes drive from the airport. This is a brief introduction of our TIIP. We acquired 70 acres, 28 hectares, 70 acres. We applied for 174 acres, but during the first acre we obtained 70. We aim to be self-sufficient. We expect to have 100,000 workers working here. This is the phase 2 and phase 2 bird's eye view. During the second phase, we will begin the construction of software park and science park. Next page. As I said earlier, our tip is about 15 minutes to the international airport, 45 minutes to city center. Going east 5 hours, we can reach Chennai. We can go north, we can do Hyderabad, and we can also go to other cities. This is a park within a park. Actually, we are located in an aerospace. Altogether 3,000 acres. We obtained 70 acres. Our neighboring lands have all been assigned to other companies. They most obtain an area smaller than 1 acre. We are very close to the airport, therefore we have limitation on the height of the building. The maximum is 10 floors. So the FAR is 3.25. We can build more floors on the existing space compared to others. So we can build high-rise buildings. Phase 1, 70 acres. This is our plan. We divided this into 6 1-acre lands, 13 2-acre lands, and we also have 10 10-acre land lots. We can also adjust this accordingly.
So you are looking at the 3D renditions of our park. So you're looking at phase 1. Basically, manufacturing units will be based mainly in phase 1 site. Basic infrastructure you can find in the park include road system and lighting system, water collection system, substations, etc. Again, here's the cross-section view of the roads. We will make sure that the basic utility services will be made available to companies and factories. Again, you are looking at pictures of different parts of the park. Again, through the drainage work, we make sure that the discharges from the park will not go outside, and there will be no other discharges from other parts outside the park coming into the park. The service center, the administration building. Here you're looking at the entrance and the inside of the admin building. Next slide, please. Next. At our service center, we provide a wide range of services from showroom, business center, and conference rooms. So in addition to hardware facilities, we aim to provide software side of services, including legal advice, company registration, etc. Another special feature of our park is we would like to provide training programs for workers. ESDM sectors are the industries we aim to serve. So to sum up, at TIIP, if you want to acquire land through KIADB vis-a-vis other private landowners, you can find the differences in the table. In our case, we have signed the lease and we enjoy free holding period. If there's any problem with the land deed, we also have the government agency to help us. Hopefully, in the future, we can develop EV or ESDM clusters in TIIP. So this is my contact info. Please contact me or my colleague, Nosh, who is Indian based in Taipei. Thank you all very much for your attention. That concludes my presentation.
行长来为我们简报，请各位鼓掌欢迎。Next, we will invite Mr. Angus Zhu, Vice President, Sriperumbudur Branch, CTBC Bank, to give his presentation. Mr. Zhu, the time is yours.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you, Mr. Chu, the Acting Secretary General CNAIC, and Mr. Regadesh, Deputy Director General of the India Taipei Association, to let me have the opportunity to present here. 各位先进长官。
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Today, I would like to share with you an introduction of investment environment in India. Before I came to India, I worked in the Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam, and Indonesia. India is definitely a huge country. In fact, if you look at their banknote, you can see there are as many as 15 official languages printed on the banknote. In fact, there are over 100 languages used in India. So India has great diversity in terms of culture and languages. Under such circumstances, you can expect to see huge disparity between the rich and the poor. The Indian government has working hard to close the gap. However, things have been moving slowly. Back to the statistics. India has 1.3 billion population. In terms of the GDP, nominal GDP, India is the world's 5th largest economy. So there's definitely great economic clout in India. The workforce in India accounts for about 50%. However, the agricultural workforce accounts for the country's population about 50%, but its contribution to GDP only 13%. That is why a wide range of policies and measures have been proposed by the government in the hope of raising the GDP contribution by this sector. Taiwanese businesses in India number in about 100. We have seen an increase in the number of Taiwanese firms in India in recent years. In fact, China has been less welcoming to manufacturers from outside China. As a result, India has risen as a very important destination for manufacturing companies. There are 3 Taiwan chambers of commerce in Mumbai, Delhi, and South India. Above them, there's the Council of Taiwan Chambers of Commerce in India. Speaking of the opportunity and the challenges for investors in India, I think the other panelists have made very good points. The first one, of course, is the demographic dividends. By 2027, India's population will outnumber that in China, and the median age in India is 27 years old. there is also very favorable policies in support of economic development. Key sectors have been identified for development, for example, IT, auto industries. However, there are challenges if you want to invest in India, as some panelists have pointed out. First of all, the efficiency in the public sector is not so high. The infrastructure is backward. Some religions and the caste system may impact commercial activities in India. There's also very complex laws, taxation systems. It takes time to register a company in India, so the implicit cost of doing business may be quite high. Now, on financial services, for any investments, financial services will be involved. India has very strict capital controls. Basically, for all foreign currency transactions, they will have to be approved on a case-by-case basis. If you receive foreign currency payment in India and you have not used up the money, you will have to convert the foreign currency into rupee. For export, import, and secondary share equity offerings, again, there are a wide range of restrictions, and approvals will have to be obtained beforehand. If you engage in any transactions in India, you cannot make any payments in foreign currencies. They have to be made in the Indian rupee. Therefore, you can open a foreign currency account in India only if you are engaged in export business. Otherwise, you can only have current account in rupee. If there's any capital injection into your Indian company, again, prior approval has to be given by the competent authorities. For funding, external commercial borrowing, ECB, is quite common in India. If you want to engage in ECB, again, the central bank in India has a number of restrictions. First of all, it will review the purpose for such ECB, whether this ECB counterparty is the parent company of the company in India or is a foreign bank. And usually, such ECB turnaround must be at least 3 years. If you are borrowing money to be used as working capital, again, different restrictions will apply. The ECB cannot be used to invest in the capital markets, equities, or real estate. For specific sectors, hedging may be required for a minimum of 1 year.
这个
Let me now switch to another important issue, which is buyer's credit. Buyer's credit is for companies' short-term operating cash. For example, if you are importing something and the payment for importation, you can ask the foreign bank, offshore bank, to pay the payment for you, and then later, through the bank, you send ruby overseas to fulfill the payment, and a bank will be the intermediary to prepare all the documentations for approval. Usually for non-capital goods, the duration is 1 year. For capital goods, it's 3 years. For limitation is 50 million for each import money. Over that, you have to require approval from central bank. There is another change of law that is very important to Taiwanese companies, because Central Bank of India, in order to strengthen the discipline of the financial market, they have new regulations. Because there are situations where a company put money in a different bank to cheat the central bank and cheat the government, cheat the competent authority, and do not disclose the actual size of their capitalization. Therefore, the new regulation is, if there is a CC or overdraft, it's a limitation to open up current account. They can only open CC or OD account. The credit line is 10%. Therefore, the threshold is 10%. For new Taiwanese company just arrived in India, there is no regulation on this one. After a while, when you start to operate in India, and when you are working smoothly, you can only retain one major bank account. You have to close out all the subsidiary accounts. This is the introduction of CTBC. We started to operate in India in 1996. We have 2 branches in India. This is our major services to Taiwanese companies in Taiwan: cash management, account receivables, and operation cash. This is a full product line for our clients. Finally, this is our contact information. This is the team. If you are in any situation, need our assistance, please do not hesitate to contact us. So this concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. We'll now engage in the discussion. Our Acting Secretary General will host this section. Please.
AIC Acting Secretary General Cho will moderate the session. We would like to invite all the online speakers to join us. Please turn on your camera again and unmute your microphone if you would like to speak.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank our 6 speakers. We have a wonderful seminar. We will now open up for QA. The floor is now open. You can ask any speakers, online or present. You can simply raise your hand and wait for the microphone. Now, floor is open. Okay, let me pose the first question. The question is for our speakers from India to respond. The question is,
ethnic groups, religions, languages, cultures, etc. It is generally believed by business community that India is more suitable for larger scale enterprises in terms of investment. While SMEs may face a lot of challenges, I would like to know your opinions about this.
Chandandeep, do you want to go or should I go?
Sorry?
Well, you know, I'll leave it to you since you belong to the industry, but obviously I can complement what you're saying because India is a very big SME market. But please go ahead.
All right. So while I agree with you about the diversity of India and also the scale of business that can be actually achieved here, but it's not necessarily to say that only large-scale companies will work here. We have lots and lots of MSMEs, which are the medium-scale enterprises, which are doing extremely well. It all depends on what sector you're looking at. For example, if you're looking at the pharmaceutical sector, if you're in the specialized area, then it would be, then a smaller company could come in with a highly specialized, but when you're looking at generic drugs, you need that scale. Similarly is the case with telecom or automotive or some of the other sectors that I've spoken about. So it all depends on what you're coming, where you're coming from. Now, as we understand it and as we know Taiwan, and we ourselves have partnered with numerous Taiwanese companies in the past, the technology that comes in from Taiwan is fantastic. So that is now highly applicable, whether you look at it from a smaller scale or even from a larger scale. So I would say that there are opportunities in India, lots of opportunities in India, and that is at both scales, whether it's small, medium, and also the large scale. And if you look at it from an automotive standpoint, the space that I come from, especially electric mobility, now at this point, the scale is still small. However, the potential to grow is huge. So any company which is coming in now and partnering in India may need to have a larger and a longer term vision, but they could come in at a smaller scale right now and then expand as the market explodes.
Yeah, just to complement what you're saying, Mr. Munjal, I had some statistics here with me. So India is a very large SME, MME kind of a market. Almost 63 million SMEs are there in India, and they contribute greatly, upwards of 30% to the overall production of the company, of the country, and almost 30% towards export. Even in the PLI scheme, there are some incentives which have been given out to this segment. So definitely, when large investments come from outside, they typically do come with scale to cater to the requirement of the country because it's huge. It has a huge demand population potential, obviously, with 1.8 billion people. So quite obviously, they want to be able to achieve that scale and achieve it quickly. So it does become a volume game. But there are great examples of multinationals who've actually come into India and also got their whole supply chain along with them. So that's where they end up playing an important role, and there are various sizes in terms of operations in that supply chain that come with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question?
We have one question from online. The first question is, the tariff for Taiwan product and Chinese products? What are the tariff rates for Taiwanese products and China products? Anybody can answer this.
Yeah, I just want to have a contribution. Because of China, in 1975, they have signed a very general free trade agreement with India. But the item is very narrow, not a lot. But to Taiwan, we always focus on under the WTO framework. It's ITA. It's an informational technology item. But unfortunately, the India's only joined the ITA 1, not ITA 2. So you could enjoy the 0 to 0, the traffic rates under the ITA the items, but the other should be the further the WTO, the MFN. But usually we could calculate in India, the average traffic rate is very high. And some bond rate, we just say that they could set up the ceiling rate. Ceiling rate maybe the 60 or higher. But from time to time, and also if you want to calculate, and you also be careful, the anti-dumping rate. You also from the anti-dumping and the safeguard case to the importer. But if you just focus on the export, but as you mentioned, you could join the special economic zone, and your inbound and outbound goods, it's a zero traffic. Thank you.
Questions. What is the influence of Taiwanese investment trade regarding the LIBOR will no longer be the main principal rate? How do we deal with the potential problems? 请问国际利率 LIBOR 准备下架，对于印度台商有何
LIBOR is about to exit the market. What will be the impact on the Indian business or investment in India?
So maybe I can take this as a banker. I think LIBOR transition is something that is impacting the banks globally. We have already prepared for that transition, and there are alternate market rates which are available. So there is, to answer your question more specifically, the LIBOR rate transition has got no impact, zero impact on India. It should not be of worry or concern. There are alternate rates which are already effective in the market, and they are being used proactively by the clients. So there's a zero impact that is expected on any Taiwanese companies or any multinational investing in India or otherwise, or any local corporate borrowing offshore funds.
Oh, thank you. I have another questions concerning climate change. We know that the many Western countries are thinking about carbon taxes and emission trading systems. We know India has a lot of has a problem like traffic jams, air pollutions, flooding, drugs, and it's thus vulnerable to climate changes. This I think may have some impact on India's foreign direct investment. So what measures would be Indian government take to respond to this trend?
So I can take that one because part of it is actually to do with the transportation and automotive sector. So when we talk about pollution and when we talk about the environment, yes, India does have an issue of air pollution, especially when it comes to the winter months. and we have the northern parts of our country actually getting having smog, etc. That said, the government is working very actively towards the environmental impact. So in fact, we are signatories to the COP26. Our emissions per capita, when we look at it, are actually quite low as against the other OECD countries and Western and Europe, etc. That said, for automotive transportation, the government has come out with a policy which is called FAME policy for automotive, and that's the fast adoption of electric vehicles. Now they came out with FAME 1 in 2019, and then now is the second one which is going on as of FAME in first one came out in 2015, and the second one came out in 2019, which has just been enhanced as of June of this year. With that enhancement, the policy has become a very, very effective one. So the government is supporting you in multiple ways. One is they are giving subsidies to vehicles which are plying on the roads in terms of electric. The second is there is a PLI scheme which is there, which is the production linked scheme. And there they were marked about $2.5 billion where they will provide us support for companies coming into the advanced battery manufacturing. So lithium-ion battery manufacturing, ACC, advanced chemistry cells, as they call it, would be a very, very interesting space for any Taiwanese companies to come in. We know that you've got very good technology when it comes to lithium-ion batteries. The third is the PMP scheme, which is to do with the production-linked manufacturing scheme. And there is earmarked of almost about $8 billion for various manufacturing activities in India. While this is the central policy, there are 16 state policies who are also supporting electrification in the transportation sector at this point of time. A large part of them are to do with manufacturing-linked support, but some of them are also doing demand-led support. So the government is working very, very actively towards environmental concerns and towards meeting emission norms. So that is something that hopefully we will see a lot of improvement in the next couple of years.
好，谢谢。请问各位
Are there any other questions for our expert panelists? On the question of LIBOR, maybe Mr. Angus Chu from CTBC Bank can also address the question. With the exit of LIBOR, what will be the impact on Taiwanese firms?
To what just mentioned, so far we have seen that the Reserve Bank of India is also try to issuing some regulation to help the transition of this particular LIBOR phase out, and also there's some the benchmark in the market which the company can or bank can follow. So actually, my view is similar that they shouldn't have the impact. Yeah, thank you.
OK， 如果
If there are no other questions, once again, I'd like to thank you all for your participation. Thank you to our panelists joining us here and online. In addition, my thanks also go to CII as well as the 6 speakers for your contributions. I look forward to meeting you soon in the near future, maybe in India or Taiwan, and hopefully we can do this in person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
OK， 谢谢。那我们就要结。
Thank you. That concludes the International Forum. Thank you.